With an independent Justice Department on the line, let's bring in MS Now Justice and Intel reporter Ken Dilanian, former FBI agent and MS Now national security and intelligence analyst Michael Feinberg, and MS Now senior legal reporter Lisa Rubin. Lisa, you texted me first thing this morning, said this entire filing was explosive. Tell me more.
Alicia, I think one of the things that is most explosive about this is we have long understood that this is a president who is willing to weaponize the Department of Justice to go after his political enemies. But it's not until this filing that we really understood the depths of how he has used other law enforcement agencies to carry out that mission, oftentimes with subtle pushback by them. And I want to tell you about two documents in particular that are attached to this filing, because it's not just that Comey's lawyers allege what happened here. They have, through the discovery process, internal email communications from the Secret Service and FBI documents that highlight what it is that you were talking about in your opening. So in one in particular, there are a series of emails among Secret Service personnel, including the person who was the head of the Presidential Protective Detail at the Secret Service, basically saying to somebody else, I need an update on what's going on with the Comey interviews. This is the day of Comey's Seashell post and the day after, saying as he is on the plane with President Trump overseas, it is a hot topic on the plane and the name of a redacted person is very interested. I appreciate it. Later that same evening, he says, hey, Adam, any updates? The COS just asked for any, referring to the chief of staff, I believe, of the White House, Susie Wiles. In another document, this is what is called incident notes taken by an unnamed Secret Service agent who is basically writing a log to themselves of all the calls incoming and outgoing that they are making. And the person says, as you just reflected, since Comey declined to provide his location that night, a redacted name asked me about the possibility of pinging his cell phone, meaning getting information that would allow us to track his whereabouts electronically. I said it could be done, but, this is a quote, it was a bad idea to declare an exigency exemption. We needed to believe that there was an imminent threat to life or limb. At that time, we did not believe that anyone's life was in immediate danger, and legally, it was a bad idea to ping the phone. Later that day, he says that in an incoming call, he tells somebody else that pinging the cell phone was, quote, legally questionable. A redacted name agreed with me, but said we might anyway. The next day, he takes a call from a special agent who is also unnamed and says he confirmed they were asked to ping James Comey's cell phone and that physical surveillance was established, meaning somebody was physically tracking Jim Comey and his wife Patrice as they were driving back up from North Carolina to the Washington, D.C. area where their primary residence is. The person says, I suggested that redacted name make note of who he had talked to and make notes of the incident. Then he says that in another call he got from a special agent in charge, an assistant special agent in charge, I believe, that a meeting with Comey was scheduled for 3 p.m. that day on May 16th, 2025 at the Washington field office. And here's the kicker. And that POTUS was requesting a copy of the interview notes to use in his 6 p.m. press conference. And then here's where things get really sticky. This same person, 3 minutes later, makes a call to a redacted person and says he informed me he was asked by the special agent in charge to ping the cell phone of James Comey via exigency. He submitted the paperwork. Again, this is a direct quote with hesitation. I suggested he make notes of the incident and who he talked to. Later in that hour, the person says that he spoke to someone who said, again, a quote, the number 3 guy at the DOJ, and we don't know who that's a reference to, wanted to ping the cell phone via an exigency request. In other words, they are being directed to carry this out, both by senior officials at the United States Secret Service who are part of the Presidential Protective Detail, who are directing them, give us the information because the president wants it. And at the same time, seeming to take orders from DOJ to avoid applying for a search warrant and instead make this exigency request directly to Verizon, which was Jim Comey's cell phone provider. This is a level of utility of law enforcement apparatus that we have not seen weaponized in a politicized way.
Michael Feinberg, Lisa Rubin makes her way through these papers as a once and future lawyer. While I know you also have a law degree, you are the only one among us who has worked inside the FBI. Just give us a sense of how unusual all of this is.
It's utterly insane that they used the exigent circumstances justification to ping Jim Comey's cell phone. I first learned about the exigent circumstances exception to the Fourth Amendment when I was in law school. And when I went through the FBI Academy during our block of instruction on the Fourth Amendment, it wasn't taught. And I was a little puzzled why. So after the class, I went up to my instructor and asked him. And he told me very candidly, we don't want agents knowing about it because we don't want agents using it because it is too likely to be abused once people are aware of it. And what Lisa claimed a Secret Service agent noted is correct. To use the exigent circumstances exception, you have to have an imminent threat to life or property or potentially the spoliation or destruction of the evidence. None of that was happening here. This was a DOJ official, whoever the number 3 DOJ official was at the time, who just decided the president wants this, we'll use this doctrine in order to get it, and we'll worry about the details or whether it was legal later. This is not how a democracy acts. This is not how a Justice Department bound by rule of law acts. This is how personalist regimes act when they go after enemies. And I have zero doubt that this entire case is going to get thrown out of court. But I also have zero doubt that the Department of Justice, whether it's under Todd Blanche or somebody else, is going to try and do it again and again and again to Director Comey.
I am curious, Ken, what it is that you are hearing from inside DOJ, inside FBI, inside the Secret Service.
Yeah, people are sickened by this, people that I talk to. I mean, look, they're not surprised, obviously. They've known that these kinds of things are going on, but just very, very disturbed. And, you know, the deep irony here, of course, is that the Republicans in Congress and the Trump administration are trying to make a lot out of a little when it comes to Jack Smith, the former special counsel, obtaining, for example, text messages of members of Congress. He did all that by the book. There was nothing like this. They spent years saying that the Biden administration was weaponizing the Justice Department, have never provided any evidence. And yet here you have James Comey's lawyers. As Lisa said, these aren't allegations. This is evidence. This is discovery that they obtained, internal emails from the government showing that a Secret Service supervisor basically believed that they were being asked to do something illegal and they had to do it anyway. It's extraordinary. And the real question is how often is this going on in cases that we don't see around the country, Alicia?
There was an FBI affidavit that notes Comey's interview on The Late Show. It was just a few days after he posted that infamous seashell photo. It's part of their pretext to accessing his phone account. Here's that appearance.
My wife and I, Patrice, were walking on the beach and saw those numbers in shells on the beach. And
you didn't do this. Somebody else did this.
Yeah, somebody else did it. We were on a walk preparing for this week, the rollout of my book. Yep. She looked at it and said, why'd someone put their address in the sand?
All right.
And then we stood at it, trying to figure out what it was. And she'd long been a server in restaurants. And she said, you know what I think it is?
Yeah.
I think it's a reference to restaurants when you would 86 something in a restaurant.
Right, it's off the menu.
I said, I think it's a clever political message. And she said, you should take a picture of it.
So help me understand if I am following this correctly, Lisa. The logic is Comey talked about the seashell case on TV, which the agents assumed would mean he would have talked about it in a pre-interview over the phone. Is that right? And if so, how big of a stretch is that?
I don't really understand the relevance of it there. Maybe he did talk about it in a pre-interview. But Jim Comey, from the very first instant that he is interviewed by the FBI, says it was never his intent to threaten or cause violence to President Trump. He says that in the very interview notes that are then forwarded to the head of the Presidential Protective Detail per his request in that email exchange that I'm talking about earlier. When the FBI then gets involved in a criminal investigation much later, they do a bunch of follow-up to see how 86 is used in a variety of different mechanisms or in common parlance. They do an investigation of the case files that Jim Comey was involved in as a mob prosecutor in the early 1980s. They find not a single reference to the term 86. They then look at trial transcripts from all of those cases, 36 of them. They find not a single reference to the word 86 meaning to kill or to murder or to mean anything else. They interview a retired FBI contractor and a former special agent with the FBI's New York-based organized crime unit who worked mob cases for 30 years. Neither one of them had any recollection of 86 being used by mob guys to connote murdering or killing someone. But you know who did? Rudy Giuliani, who on a radio broadcast almost immediately after the post went on the radio and said Jim Comey had to have known that 86 meant to murder or kill someone based on his experiences as a mob prosecutor. When the FBI itself then interrogated whether that would have been true based on Jim Comey's experience as a prosecutor, they found that not to be the case. And yet, in interviewing witnesses connected to this case, including a witness on whom they are relying, they never told them that their internal investigation demonstrated that 86 is not a term commonly used by the mafia.